In this edition of I Escape, a murderous gang bust out of prison, leaving chaos in their wake.
We knew there was a serious manhunt, but every day was precious to us.
And a desperate inmate pulls off a Houdini-style vanishing act.
He was the cornered rat, the man who had to get away come what may.
Around the world, over 9 million prisoners are behind bars. These are the stories of the few who dared to break out. Karnes County, Kennedy, Texas, 2000. The John B. Connolly Maximum Security Prison. No prisoner has ever escaped, but 7 inmates are planning what will be one of the most sensational breakouts in U.S. history. The ringleader is 30-year-old George Rivas, a ruthless armed robber and kidnapper serving 18 life sentences.
Rivas had a long criminal history, and his crimes, as I realized as I studied him, were generally characterized by meticulous planning.
Rivas has had enough of prison.
There's a saying in the prison. It goes, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I got to that point. I didn't want to die an old man in prison.
But Rivas' escape plan requires assistance. He picks 6 of society's lowest dregs to help him break out. Patrick Murphy, serving 50 years for rape. Joseph Garcia, 50 years for murder. Child abuser Randy Halperin, 30 years for beating a baby so severely he broke its arms, legs, and skull. Larry Harper, 50 years for raping 3 women in 6 months. Michael Rodriguez, doing life for murdering his wife. And Donald Newberry, 99 years for multiple armed robberies.
The amount of time that everybody faced made them commit the act to get out of prison.
These men came to be known as the Texas 7.
Take away hope from men, you give them an initiative, and they are practically unstoppable.
Rivas figures the best way to escape is through the maintenance workshop. Workshop supervisors are civilian prison employees. Civilian workers are not armed.
It was not unusual for us to be left alone, 4 or 5 of us, with 1, maybe 2 maintenance workers.
December 13th, 2 weeks before Christmas. The 7 get the chance they've been waiting for.
They executed the plan during the noon hour and during the time that there was a Christmas party going on, so security was a little bit down at that time.
Normally, inmates are locked up at lunchtime, but today they ask to stay and wax the floor. Patrick Mozagemba is the only supervisor. For the gang, from this point on, there's no going back.
We wrestled him to the ground. I was the one talking to him, trying to tell him, just, look, nothing's going to happen to you. Keep asking, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Essentially, I told him the truth. I said, I want to go home. I don't want to die here.
Holding a homemade knife to Patrick's throat, Rivas threatens to kill him unless he cooperates.
He was struggling a lot. He was the biggest of them. And someone, maybe overzealous, hit him.
Patrick is stripped of his uniform, bound and gagged. As the other supervisors straggle back, they too are overpowered.
Sometimes they came in 1 at a time, sometimes 3 at a time.
One by one, they are bound and gagged. Their IDs, cash, keys, and uniforms taken.
I think there were 13 that actually finally came in there.
Then Rivas phones the tower and convinces the guard that a maintenance crew is on its way to fix a faulty surveillance camera.
I spoke the talk, I guess. I talked the talk, walked the walk with it.
Believing that Rivas is a genuine staff member, Officer Vernon Jansen buys his story.
I walk up there. I had never seen that officer before. He was an older man. And I looked around, and there's a holster with a revolver sitting on a table. I said, is that loaded? He said, yes, it is. And I got the holster with the revolver. And I told him, listen, I don't want you to get hurt. Just cooperate, and everything's going to be all right.
At gunpoint, Rivas forces the guard to have the gates opened as the rest of the gang casually climb into a prison maintenance vehicle.
We have 4 hiding underneath, 3 of us are up front. Just drive right out.
Incredibly, Rivas and the gang drive slowly out through the front gates, past the unsuspecting guards.
Do not approach these people. Contact law enforcement, whether it's us or any of the other agencies. Let us do what we need to do on this and get these people into custody.
One step ahead of the massive manhunt, the gang quickly swipes another vehicle and vanishes.
We were all ecstatic, honestly. We knew there was a serious manhunt. But every day was precious to us. The freedom of walking to the corner store and buying a soda, a newspaper, and the clerk saying, "Good morning, how are you?" It was absolutely beautiful.
To afford their new lifestyle, the gang reverts to their old ways.
I had planned for us to rob, to get money, buy clothes, food, shelter, a vehicle, and purchase some IDs.
On Christmas Eve, they enter an Irving, Texas sporting goods store.
The gentleman gathered us up in front of the store. George Rivas pulled his revolver, said this is a holdup. This is not a joke.
As the gang escapes with $70,000 and 20 stolen guns, they are confronted by Officer Aubrey Hawkins.
I fired one round first at his right shoulder. Now I cursed. I screamed at him and cursed for him to raise his hands.
Officer Hawkins dies in a hail of bullets, shot 11 times.
And as if to send a message to those pursuing them, they then pulled his body from his car and ran it over with their getaway vehicle.
The really sad part to me is he answered that call while having Christmas Eve dinner with his wife and 9-year-old son.
Whether I fired the lethal round that did kill Mr. Hawkins or not, I did initiate it. I'm at fault, and I do take full responsibility for it.
To kill a police officer in Texas is a very bad thing to do. It did up the ante.
The Texas Seven are now the most wanted men in America. In Dallas, Texas, 7 prison escapees have been on the run for over 2 weeks.
The manhunt for the Texas Seven was the largest I saw in my 23 years in the FBI.
Hoping to throw their pursuers off the scent, the Texas Seven flee over 800 miles north to Colorado, gathering guns and ammunition along the way.
They'd stolen, I think, 16 weapons at the prison, but now they were into high-powered weapons, weapons that could defeat body armor.
On January 1st in Colorado Springs, a group of men check into the Coachlight RV park.
They said they were missionaries from Texas and had gone to California, were working their way back to Texas, and they all kind of portrayed that part. We spent time in the Word, we studied the Bible, we had coffee together, so nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary for me.
But then on January 21st, the Texas Seven are featured on America's Most Wanted.
Several times they've thought they've had them cornered, but each time they've slipped away.
A trailer park resident recognizes them and tells park manager Wade Holder.
It was them, and I was totally in shock, I guess. Doing this little town, our little RV park has these 7 notorious criminals here.
Holder immediately contacts police and agrees to assist them.
I came in at the usual time, business as usual, and we had a SWAT team follow me in a motorhome. So we got here, and I got out and checked the exterior, kind of make sure nobody was looking, and shuttle the crew into the building.
Holder makes plans to meet with rapist Larry Harper the next morning.
So the plan was set, 10 o'clock, he would come down, have coffee, they would pull him out, and then find out where everybody was and proceed from there.
The trap is set. But 45 minutes later, there's still no sign of him. Child abuser Halpern and rapist Harper are still in the RV. A negotiator is sent in.
He began calling on the bullhorn, "We know you're there, you're surrounded, and there really is no hope."
Halpern surrenders, but Harper stays inside.
We were attempting to negotiate him out, and during the negotiations at 12:40, we heard a gunshot.
The SWAT team storms the RV. They find Larry Harper dead, a self-inflicted shot to the chest. Next to his body, an open Bible and a letter of apology to his family. At the same time, another SWAT team surrounds Rivas, Garcia, and Rodriguez as they climb into their car.
There was a man in front of me with a AR-15 pointing right at my chest. Car was still on. It was in gear. I had my foot on the brake.
The subjects admitted that had they had an opportunity to get to their weapons, they would have shot it out.
Rivas, Garcia, and Rodriguez are taken into custody.
The reason we did this is because we didn't want to be in prison anymore. And here we are going back again.
But rapist Patrick Murphy and armed robber Donald Newberry are still at large.
Those two are still on the run, heavily armed and extremely dangerous.
As authorities continue their search, a tip-off leads them to a brown van in a restaurant parking lot.
This morning around 6 o'clock, this vehicle was detected by employees of the Hungry Farmer. Now, in conjunction with the federal authorities, they have confirmed that this is in fact the vehicle that the fugitives had been using.
I work at the Holiday Inn Garden of the Gods. I checked some of them real quick. Are they still there? Yeah. It kind of looks suspicious.
Police determine it definitely is the 2 remaining escapees, Murphy and Newberry.
They knocked on the door and said, we're with law enforcement, we know who you are, and then start a negotiation.
They want their say on local television station KKTV. A phone interview is organized with anchorman Eric Singer. Newberry uses his airtime to criticize the Texas penal system.
I've done crime, you know, got to face the music. But they're giving kids so much time that their life is gone. Now all they are is a roach in a cage. Things have to be changed. There needs to be more rehabilitation in the system down there. You know, couldn't even go to college. Come on, where's the rehabilitation when you can't even help yourself?
Don Newberry was a rebel without a cause. He had felt he'd been wronged by the state of Texas. He'd felt that his life had turned into this.
When the interview ends, Newberry and Murphy give up without a fight.
Handcuffed and heavily guarded, Donald Newberry and Patrick Murphy Jr. walked out of a Colorado Springs hotel and back into reality.
We feel extremely fortunate that this happened without any injury to anybody. That was our objective from the beginning.
For the murders of Officer Aubrey Hawkins, all 6 remaining members of the Texas 7 received the death sentence.
With the death of Mr. Hawkins, death sentence to me, I feel personally, is fitting. I deserve it then, so I'm not going to fight it.
On August 14, 2008, Michael Anthony Rodriguez was executed by lethal injection. The 5 other members of the Texas 7 await their fate on death row. Coming up next, an inmate pulls off a feat Houdini would be proud of. Australia, 2006. Just 3 miles south of world-famous Bondi Beach is Long Bay Hospital 1. Holding 120 psychiatric prisoners, the maximum security facility is in lockdown 18 hours a day.
Long Bay Hospital is a stark place. It's a concrete brick dungeon. If you were a healthy person in the first place and you remained in one of those cells for 18 hours a day, locked with, in fact, nothing in your cell at all, I'd be very surprised if you remained a sane person after that.
As a danger to themselves and the general public, prisoners are often medicated and sedated.
If you put people who are already mentally ill in such conditions, then it's a recipe for a disaster, and the level of mental illness there is quite horrendous.
Held within the walls is 36-year-old Robert Cole. Jailed for rape and armed robbery when he was just 18, Cole has spent most of his adult life in prison.
He's had 18 years, and I think the most he's ever spent out of prison was probably 3 months. And that's a sad situation. I mean, he came out, he was a chronic heroin addict. He could not cope with the outside world.
He was distraught, he was concerned. He also felt that he didn't have anything in the future, had a sense of desperation. So for him, he was the cornered rat, the man who had to get away come what may.
And Robert Cole has a plan. Believing that he's found a way to escape through his cell window, Cole begins a crash diet at the end of 2005 to rapidly lose weight.
I understand Robert lost that weight very quickly. To do that, though, he would have had to restrict his food and calories, and he also would have had to maybe even exercise in his cell, but also using laxatives would have accelerated that weight loss to some degree.
If you really want, you can find most things in jail. You can always find drugs. So laxative is actually not a hard thing to find, if you have contacts inside the jail and you have something to offer.
By January, Cole has shed a quarter of his body weight and is becoming ill.
Obviously, Robert's mindset would have been very determined, and he must have just, got some strength from somewhere, because those laxatives and the dieting and to lose all that weight would have certainly stripped him of all his energy.
Now extremely weak from his months of crash dieting, Cole's next step is to smuggle a knife into his cell. Silently, he begins to carve away the brickwork beside the bars.
Unbeknown to the prison officers, of course. And during that period, he was slowly trying to slide through the bars and see whether it was actually possible for him to get through. And he discovered by chipping, and chipping hit his body, he actually found a formula.
Mortar in the olden days was made with lime instead of cement, which means it's much more affected by the weather. So the proximity to the coast of those bricks and mortar would mean that it was a lot more friable and affected by the salt, so it would be easier to wear away over time.
Whether Cole has calculated this weak spot in the prison's armor or just struck it lucky, he spent weeks scraping an escape passage. Finally, in the early hours of January 18th, Cole's escape hole is ready. He creates a dummy in his bed by filling his pillowcase. But to escape, he still has to overcome the prison wall, a security fence, and a high-tech ring of electronic security systems. Australia, 2006. At the maximum security hospital wing of Long Bay Jail, Robert Cole is poised to execute his escape. Using a crash diet, he has lost a quarter of his body weight and carved a small hole in the bricks next to the bars of his cell. Squeezing his now 123-pound frame through the 6-inch gap, Cole drops to the ground. Staying low to avoid being spotted by the guards and the motion detectors, he crawls across the yard.
A sense of pleasure, of exultation, a sense of triumph, a sense of the individual achieving something they'd worked very hard for. But of course, at the end of that, he'd done it by himself, and he had no people outside to assist him and assist him at the other end. He still had another wall to overcome.
How Cole managed to scale the prison wall and run along the top without being detected is still a mystery.
I'm really not sure how Robert got that strength to get over that fence. After what he had to do to lose that weight, I'm surprised he had any energy left, because everything would have been depleted.
And he still had to find his way to freedom into some place of safety.
A violent and mentally ill criminal is on the run tonight after going on a crash diet and slipping through the bars at Long Bay Jail.
Robert Cole is mentally ill, very dangerous, and it would appear very smart.
The publicity that followed his escape, it was quite remarkable. He was on television, he was on newspapers.
He's planned it, he's looked at the staff movements, he's looked at how it operates, I would imagine, and he's managed to escape.
The jail's security manager has been stood down as police hunt the escapee.
Robert Cole is the first man ever to escape from Long Bay's maximum security hospital wing.
Robert Cole is off his meds, dehydrated, and on the loose in an eastern suburb of Sydney.
His mind, obviously at 36, after being so far on the drugs, is a mess.
It is said in law enforcement that if you don't catch a prisoner within 3 miles or 3 hours of an escape, you're in for one hell of a manhunt.
I would beg him to come back. I know that he feels he's not going to get any help where he was. I don't know what sort of drugs he's on at the moment, or lack of drugs that he's on. I don't know what he will do to try and get those drugs. I have no idea.
And no doubt the general community was concerned because he was a person who was accused of a sex offence, who was on the loose, and I don't doubt at all many people were concerned, locked their doors and made sure that they weren't walking in the evening. It would have affected people's lifestyles.
On January 21st, 3 days into the manhunt, police receive information that Cole has been brazenly walking the streets just 3 miles from the prison.
He was discovered with an almost farcical way, having painted a texture colour beard on his face and trying a disguise that was not going to work at all. He would have felt so depressed. He would feel as though he didn't have nothing to live for.
Robert Cole received an extra 21 months for his escape and is now incarcerated at Sydney's Silverwater prison. Deemed criminally insane, Cole is currently being held without a release date.